Would you drink beer without alcohol? I figured the answer would be no. However, apparently there is a pretty big and growing number of people in many different countries. And the top country may surprise you. At least it did surprise me, as it was the last country I would ever expect to be drinking alcohol-free anything. But I suppose it does make sense. I'll talk about the top country more later, but this video is supposed to be about Japan since it's much more interesting. Beer was introduced to Japan in the late 1800s, during a time of rapid modernization known as the Meiji era. As the country opened up to foreign influence after centuries of isolation, evil Western traders, particularly from Europe and the United States, brought beer to port cities like Yokohama and Nagasaki. In 1869, Norwegian-American brewer William Copeland founded the Spring Valley Brewery in Yokohama. The government took notice. The beer soon gained popularity among the elites as a symbol of Western sophistication. By the early 20th century, Japanese brewers such as Sapporo and Kirin began to emerge, setting the stage for beer to become a national staple over the next century. After World War II, beer experienced a dramatic boom in Japan as the country rebuilt itself and embraced a modern consumer culture. American occupation forces played a role in popularizing beer by making it more widely available to soldiers and civilians. As Japan's economy surged in the 1950s and 60s, beer became a symbol of the modern salaryman lifestyle. Drinking after work with colleagues, known as nomikai, became deeply ingrained in corporate culture, with beer being the default drink. At the same time, domestic brewers like Asahi, Kirin, and Sapporo expanded production and advertising, making beer more affordable and accessible. By the 1970s, beer had cemented its place as the beverage of choice for both celebration and daily routine. Now, beer had not only become a staple of modern Japanese life, it had officially overtaken sake in popularity. This was a huge shift considering Japan's national drink had been sake for centuries, deeply tied to rituals, festivals, and traditional meals. But as younger generations embraced more Western lifestyles, beer came to symbolize modernity, convenience, and sociability. Sake, on the other hand, was seen as too strong, formal, or old-fashioned, and it began to lose favor with consumers looking for a lighter, more refreshing beverage. Also, it helps that beer is cold and carbonated. It naturally made it a more appealing choice during hot summers, and its compatibility with a wide range of Western and Japanese foods helped it thrive. The convenience of canned and bottled beer also made it perfect for home consumption, picnics, or vending machine sales. By the end of the decade, beer wasn't just the drink of the working man, it was Japan's drink of choice. In the 1990s and early 2000s, Japan's beer industry underwent a unique transformation with the introduction of two new categories, hopposhu and third beer. These weren't created because of changing tastes, but more to get around Japan's alcohol tax laws. Traditional beer in Japan is taxed based on its malt content. So to make cheaper alternatives, brewers began experimenting with reduced malt recipes. The result was hopposhu, literally sparkling alcohol, which contained less than 67% malt, looking and tasting like beer but costing significantly less, making it appealing to price-conscious consumers. I think it's important to note here that hopposhu still contained alcohol, a similar amount to regular beer, so despite its tax-friendly formulation, it was not alcohol-free, and therefore Japanese consumers still treated it as a standard alcoholic beverage in social settings. As the tax laws evolved, brewers went even further with third beer, or new genre drinks. These contained a little to no malt at all and used alternatives like soy protein or pea extract to mimic the flavor of beer. They were even cheaper than hopposhu and quickly gained popularity, especially during Japan's economic stagnation when households were tightening budgets. While many beer lovers criticized the taste, both hopposhu and third beer carved out a strong market share. They allowed Japan's major breweries to diversify their offerings and maintain competitiveness during a period when alcohol consumption was beginning to plateau. These categories blurred the lines between real beer and beer-like drinks that laid the groundwork for future innovations, including non-alcoholic beer. In recent decades, alcoholic beer consumption has been on a steady decline in Japan. As Japan's population ages and birth rates decline, there are simply fewer young adults, which is the age group most associated with higher alcohol consumption. At the same time, many younger Japanese are choosing to drink less, whether for health reasons, budget constraints, or general shift in lifestyle priorities. The rise of remote work, more solo dining, and changing social dynamics have also reduced the frequency of group drinking occasions. There's a lot of reasons here, and a lot of them are in very different categories. This decline in alcoholic beer consumption created the perfect conditions for non-alcoholic and low-alcohol alternatives to step in and fill the gap, not only in terms of market share, but as a cultural rethinking of what drinking looks like in Japan. Can you guess who profited from the declining beer market? It was the beer companies, of course. In 2007, Japan introduced some of its toughest drunk driving laws to date. Under the revised Road Traffic Act, even a small amount of alcohol could lead to severe penalties, including hefty fines, license suspension, or jail time. Also, riding a bike in Japan is considered a lightweight vehicle or something along those lines. The point is, you can't drink if you're going to ride a bike. These new rules reshaped how people thought about drinking in everyday life. Social pressure to avoid them, even minimal alcohol before getting behind the wheel, increased. And many companies doubled down on zero-tolerance policies. This sudden cultural and legal shift created a perfect opportunity for brewers to innovate. If people still wanted the taste and the social rituals of beer without the legal risk, there had to be an alternative. That alternative came in the form of non-alcoholic beer. In 2009, Kirin made the bold move that they would redefine the beer landscape in Japan. It launched Kirin Free, the country's first truly alcohol-free beer with a 0% alcohol content. This wasn't just a reduced alcohol product, it was completely alcohol-free, designed to look, taste, and feel like beer. Unlike previous attempts that lacked flavor or satisfaction, Kirin Free used advanced brewing and removal techniques to preserve the rich, malty character that Japanese consumers associated with real beer. The timing couldn't have been better. Public concern about drunk driving was at a peak. Within months, Kirin Free became a sensation. Demand was so high that the company had to publish a formal apology in the national newspaper because they couldn't keep up with production. The message was clear. There was a real appetite for a beer alternative that didn't compromise on taste or image. Kirin Free paved the way for a new era of non-alcoholic innovation in Japan's beverage industry. Following the success of Kirin Free, Japan's other major brewers quickly jumped onto the non-alcoholic beer market. In 2010, Suntory introduced All Free, a 0% alcohol beer that boasted 0 calories and 0 sugar, an early example of how health-conscious messaging would become a key part of the new category. Suntory aimed to not only appeal to drivers and abstainers, but also to people looking to cut calories without giving up the taste or ritual of beer. The clean branding and sleek marketing helped All Free stand out, and it quickly became one of the top sellers in the non-alcoholic category. Then, in 2011, Sapporo joined the race with premium alcohol-free. Sapporo's offering was notable for being the first non-alcoholic beer in Japan to be certified as a food for specified health uses, or FOSHU, thanks to added dietary fiber intended to support digestive health. Intentional or not, this was a strategic move that aligned the product with Japan's booming functional food market, giving it an extra layer of appeal beyond just alcohol avoidance. Meanwhile, Asahi was refining its own entry. Though it had earlier experimented with 0.0, it wasn't until a few years later that Asahi would make a serious splash with Dry Zero, which would go on to become a category leader. Still, the 2010 to 2011 period marked a major expansion of the non-alcoholic beer space. These major launches signal that the big four brewers were still taking the category seriously, not as a novelty but as a long-term investment. What had started as a niche product was now becoming competitive, becoming a rapidly growing market with each company working to differentiate their take on alcohol-free beer. Obviously, most early adopters of non-alcoholic beer in Japan came from groups that had the most to gain from avoiding alcohol, especially in light of Japan's harsh DUI penalties enacted in 2007. For them, non-alcohol beer offered a way to enjoy the taste and feel of beer without risking fines or legal trouble. Another big category was pregnant women, unable to drink alcohol but still wanting to participate in social gatherings or just enjoy a refreshing drink with dinner. Non-alcoholic beer provided a safer, more satisfying alternative to soft drinks or juice. Older adults too became early fans. Many seniors reduce or eliminate alcohol for health reasons. Yet the habits and cultural associations around drinking, especially in a society where drinking often plays a social role, are hard to shake. Non-alcoholic beer filled that gap by preserving the ritual while also removing the risk. These early adopters helped normalize the category, proving there was a real market for beer without alcohol in Japan. Aside from the demographics, non-alcoholic beers are not taxed like alcohol. In Japan, beverages with less than 1% alcohol are legally classified as soft drinks, which means they're not subject to the alcohol tax system. This creates a major financial incentive for both consumers and manufacturers. For consumers, it means non-alcoholic beer is often cheaper than regular beer. For brewers, it opens up a tax-free product category with a growing demand. However, I'm sure the Japanese government hasn't always been thrilled about this situation. In recent years, alcohol tax revenue has declined sharply, prompting the government to launch campaigns encouraging younger people to drink more traditional alcohol, like sake. Additionally, to recoup tax losses from low malt and third beers, the government is in the process of phasing in a new alcohol tax structure that will equalize taxes across all beer types by 2026. While non-alcoholic beer remains exempt for now, as it's classified as a soft drink, it's clear that the government is watching the space closely. If non-alcoholic beer continues to grow in popularity and eats into the taxable alcohol sales, There is a possibility that the future tax reforms could target this segment too, but I would like to think that wouldn't happen. The rise of liver rest days, known as kinkanbi, where people purposefully skip alcohol to give their liver a break, has become a common wellness habit promoted by doctors, influencers, and even the beer companies. Similarly, dry days or extended dry months are increasingly popular. These shifts are tied to a broader health-conscious movement in Japan that encourages moderation without sacrificing social rituals, can't say that word, or the enjoyment of beer. Taste improvements cited in consumer surveys, especially among repeat buyers who noted that newer, non-alcoholic beers are more closely to mimicking the flavor profile, mouthfeel, and aroma of traditional beer. Innovations in brewing and de-alcoholization techniques have allowed companies to preserve hop character and malt complexity, addressing early criticisms that non-alcoholic beers tasted watery or artificial. Surveys conducted by major brewers such as Kirin and Asahi indicate a significant increase in consumer satisfaction over the past decade, with many consumers now reporting that they can't tell the difference in a blind taste test. COVID also had a pretty big impact here. A sharp decline in nomikai as lockdowns, social distancing measures, and heightened awareness of hygiene discouraged group gatherings. As a result, drinking became more individualized and often moved into the home, where the appeal of lighter or non-alcoholic options like non-alcohol beer grew. I think social camouflage really does play a big role in it. I've always thought that was a weird phrase, but I think it does fit well here, and I can see what people mean when they say it. I think that's one of the reasons Liquid Death got really popular for a while in America. I'm not sure if it's still popular now, but not wanting to be left out or camouflaging yourself into the group is a big factor. You don't want to be the only person not drinking, right? Also, much like Liquid Death, all of the Japanese brands have identical packaging to their alcoholic beer counterparts, minus the non-alcoholic part on the label. So what does this all mean on the global context? Japan is currently the second largest non-alcoholic beer market in the world by volume, trailing only behind one country. This ranking reflects not only the size of the Japanese beer market, but also a deep cultural integration of non-alcoholic beer in daily life. Unlike many other countries where non-alcoholic beer is still seen as a niche or a novelty, in Japan it's normalized, served in izakayas, stocked in convenience stores, and heavily advertised by major breweries. So what is this mysterious country that sits in first place? It's Germany. Germany leads the world with an impressive 14.2% of its alcohol beer volume made up by non-alcoholic varieties. This dominance is rooted in a long-standing cultural acceptance of non-alcoholic beers that dates back decades, particularly among drivers and health-conscious drinkers, just like in Japan. It's brewed under the same purity laws, often with the same attention to craft as alcoholic beers, and it's available in almost every pub and supermarket. In many ways, Germany set the global precedent for what high-quality non-alcoholic beer could be. So the estimated future for non-alcoholic beer. Non-alcoholic beer is booming worldwide. Places like US, Spain, and Germany have embraced it, as you can see by this very cool graph, with consumers increasingly drawn to wellness, moderation, and less alcohol. But in Asia, Japan stands out as the only major market with significant non-alcoholic beer consumption. Right now, even though it may have seemed pretty big from this video, non-alcoholic beer is still only about 6% of Japan's total beer market. But it is growing, and it's growing pretty quick. Young people are drinking less, and older people are looking for more moderation. Companies like Asahi are leaning into it as well, aiming for half of their beverage sales to be low or non-alcohol by 2040. Even if that's a company goal rather than a national trend, it still shows the big shift. Japan's brewers are also following a smart playbook, one similar to Liquid Death in the US. Just like Liquid Death sells water and beer-like cans to remove the awkwardness of sobriety, Japan's non-alcohol beers look and feel like the real thing. That visual mimicry makes it easier to blend in and not look like a loser. So yeah, more than just being a health product, it's a social tool. And that's why non-alcoholic beer in Japan is super popular now. That's it though, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I hope I didn't structure that poorly. The certain parts of that felt like it was structured kind of poorly and a little bit rambly maybe. But yeah, thank you for watching. Bye bye, like, subscribe. Bye bye.